Yep, I got two of them here. Is it working? 5 seconds, it says it's working. Little feedback action. Oh, good. Okay. All right, so if we're going to discuss, we're going to have a group meeting and we're going to discuss flight instructors and flight instructor competency. I appreciate the thing that you sent over to me before. That was really good. I got my second set of revisions for the paper on trying to figure out what a competency is for flight instructing. And I don't know, I don't understand the corrections I got, but it's pretty interesting because as I go through like the FAA stuff on competencies, like they don't mention anything about behavior and attitude, and those are like really important competencies uh, that are kind of neglected. No, they don't mention behaviors and attitudes as a competency. Only knowledge and skills and uh, yeah, definitely. Well, they talk about the hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy, and how you have to get everybody all happy and stuff, but it doesn't have anything. Yeah, right. Yes, and that's for pilots though, not for flight instructors. Yeah. Well, when you go into the PTS, it talks about the competencies you need in order to sit for and pass the CFI exam to become a flight instructor. And what it lists for competencies is you have to have a certain number of hours, you have to have a certain score on written test and a certain score on the practical test, and that's it. Certain number of hours, and that's it. So when we go in and we interview people and say, hey, you want to be my flight instructor? What are we supposed to look for? Number of hours? What about if the guy's a real jerk? Or what if the guy's a really nice guy, but it's just afraid of flying? Yeah, right. Yeah, you've had plenty of guys that were time builders that really just wanted to get as many hours as they could, as fast as they could, and really, if they could do it all in charter, they would do it all in charter in a second. Right. Yeah. I You could really see that in flight reviews because you'll get somebody who comes out who you say, okay, let's take the plane up and show me some stall recovery, and they get all, oh, I'm afraid to do stalls. Well, why are you afraid to do stalls? Oh, my instructor. I mean, and you can tell right away. They and I've had. Yeah, that's it. Yep. And I got people who, I mean, you think stalls freak people out. You should hear when I start talking to people about spin recoveries. It's like, come on, we're going to go up and do spin recoveries. And they're like, they freak out. Like, what do you mean? We're not allowed to do that. We're going to die. Like, no, we're not. We're going to recover the same way we recover from anything else. Uh, so I have had instructors who were not afraid to do stalls and not afraid to do spins, but who scared the crap out of students because they either talked over them with words that they couldn't understand, or they just were cantankerous types of people. And I've had other on the other side where they were, as soon as the stall warning horn would go off, they would start recovering from the stall. And you're like, it's not stalled. That's not a stall. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's exactly it. So you get to what is a competency, and if you have a guy who's afraid to teach stalls, well, what kind of competency is that, and how does that figure in? So how do you figure that out as somebody who's going to hire a flight instructor? You know, you take them out and you go fly with them, and you see if they scare you or if they seem like they're cool. But there's really no hard, fast rules for it or any studies on it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Right. Totally true. That's a great idea. I, I, I'm still listening to you. I'm just going to turn on a light. Hang on.
maybe you wouldn't do that for all the flight instructors, but you would definitely do that for an assistant chief, someone that's going to really put a mark on the school. You could do it for every instructor, that'd be great.
We did a I did like a kind of the thing that I asked you to write to me before, and that we had sent to a bunch of other flight instructors. We asked for like narratives, basically, for them to tell us, those the stories that I'd asked you questions about, telling me about the most challenging experience and all that kind of stuff. In fact, I have it right here. And so we want to try to put together a written document that lists just some things that you'd be looking for uh, in an instructor candidate. And some of those things were pretty interesting. Like, for instance, we said, yeah, obviously a certain number of hours in the plane, but did you know, here's some pretty interesting competencies that we have listed here. Humility. I mean, humility isn't that's a weird one, right? But it seemed that in all the narratives of everybody who wrote back about telling me as an experience, humility was resounding in all of them. It was like almost every single one was like, well, I can't really tell you about a great experience, but here was a good one. I mean, that's a kind of I think that's humility, a sense of humor. Everybody had some kind of something funny in that. It had a kind of philosophical view.
Good.
Uh,
Yeah, humility is huge, and it's really important. And I didn't realize that I just, I'm sure I've had it. I'm sure I've used it and demonstrated it with my students, but um, just didn't realize it. Like, for example, you can always learn something from your students and vice versa. And, you know, even as professional pilots, when we put people against humility, because arrogance has caused some deadly airline accidents.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and basically when I got to Continental Express, early on, airlines teach CRM now, and as I understand it, it started right after the Tenerife accident
Oh yeah,
with 7 collided.
yeah.
But the way the instructors at Continental Express summed it up was CRM is the philosophy of um, not who's right, it's what's right.
Yeah.
So, you have two professional pilots, and one might hear a radio call a certain way, and one might hear the other. And guess what? Um, it's worth taking an extra 10 seconds to figure it out to get people's lives again. So, I would always admit to my students if I messed up. If I had to demonstrate something, I was just very objective about it. Yeah, that maneuver, yeah, the steep turn was okay. I got 100 feet off altitude. I said that's not acceptable for me. It should be 50. I would just tell them, yeah, hey, I just demonstrated the maneuver, and guess what? I didn't do it perfectly.
That's how not to do it. I'm
Well,
just,
yeah, to be perfect, sometimes you don't get enough time in the control. So, but I guess I didn't think of it. I just think instructions should be black and white. You met the standard, you did great, you didn't meet this, here's why, and let's do better. Not berating a person. And then maybe when they did the maneuver and they didn't do it perfect, they're okay. Because what? My instructor just did. He didn't do it perfect. Doesn't mean I'm not a good pilot. I'm not a good teacher. We should change instructors. It just means that I know how to apply to certain standards, and when I'm not meeting them, I know how to get back to them and how to practice to get my skills back to where they need to be.
one other one that I thought was interesting that I didn't expect was something that we call self-efficacy. I don't know if you ever heard that term, but it means like somebody who thinks that they can. It's a weird thing because at the same time they feel like they have humility, they also feel like they can actually do something and get it done and fix things and change things and have an actual personal impact on
Right,
something
right,
coming out correctly, which is
right.
you would think would be exact opposite of humility, but it's funny that they have to have both.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And so yeah, I think I definitely have humility as an instructor, but also have confidence that I know when I'm going in, it's all been landing, that I feel perfectly comfortable. I'm not scared. Um, But yeah, I mean, I've definitely flown with instructors that were scared. And you could tell they would try to hide it, but you can. It always, almost always comes through.
Yeah, definitely.
So they didn't have self efficacy. They had some weaknesses that they were trying to hide and thought that they couldn't improve, or you say fix it or get it done. That's a problem.
Well, so that's all on like the personal effectiveness level, and the next level up on academic competencies, you have reading, science, communication abilities, critical and analytical thinking, basic computer skills, and I thought this was an interesting one that we kind of made up for the scale is aeronautical ease, and I think that kind of comes to what you're just saying 2 seconds ago, because you do get instructors that really are afraid to fly, like they don't really feel comfortable flying. You can see they're not quite happy
Right.
doing it.
Right. Like Sim Jim.
Sim Jim, perfectly.
Using him as an example. I'm sure he was perfectly proficient pilot. If he just relaxed.
Yeah, and knowing that you're going to have somebody else. I don't know. Do you have like a couple second rule, like where if they're not starting to correct it in a certain way, you'll jump in and help them?
Cuts out. So
That's just,
pilot, I can tell he's a little scared of certain aspects and a little nervous. And then I remember being in the crew room and one of the pilots, when he found out who I was flying with for a trip, said, "Oh, you're flying with chicken wings," and that's not a really good nickname to have as a pilot. Thought he was a chicken, but it was going through my mind. I wasn't making fun of the guy or belittling him. I never repeated that nickname. But I was just thinking to myself, why is he doing this in his career if he doesn't enjoy it? I mean, pilots that are doing it for career normally love it. Every pilot gets a little scared or nervous once in a while, but they kind of enjoy it. They thought that was cool. I was doing that ILS down to minimums, and I nailed it. And we got in, 30 minutes before a thunderstorm, which is, legal, obviously. You're with ATC, but everything has to just click. And you have to just right. So yeah, obviously, I think your technique, taking a CFI hire candidate do spins and talk to them and see how easy they are. That's a good technique.
I stole that from Robert Smith Barry, who invented that in 1918.
Oh yeah, okay.
Pretty tried and true. It's 100 years old.
Yeah, no, it works. It works. I mean, to be honest, more conservative programs do spins to get your CFI, but then you don't have to do them.
Well, yeah, it's hard to get insurance. I mean, I wouldn't write a letter to my insurance company bragging about how many spins we do. I don't think they'd be overly impressed. But it's
Right.
perfectly safe. But if they see an opportunity for any kind of liability, they're going to shut that down right away.
Yeah, sure. Definitely risk averse.
Yeah.
Maximizing the profit. But I was never scared of them I didn't avoid them. I mean, after I had my private license, I remember reading an article in I can't remember. I think it may have been it was one of the free FAA publications, but it mentioned that it's really good for private pilots to actually get spins, real spin training after they get their license because we're some kind of unusual attitude training.
Yeah.
It's nothing like the real thing. So my instructor my primary instructor for my private, I knew that he had a friend that was an aerobatics instructor, so he put me in touch. When I went up in the pits as 2B,
Yeah.
it was spins. It was a blast.
Yeah.
Loved it. And then I felt fine. I mean, so and then I didn't do them again until I got my CFI. And to be honest, I haven't done them since. But I'd like to do them again.
Oh, we got to get you out here in the Tomahawk. You'll love them. That's the big difference in the pits and the Tomahawk is that the Pitts has a 300 horsepower engine, and the thing only weighs about 1,000 pounds. So you can power out of just about any situation. With the Tomahawk, you only have 100. You know what you have? You have the 0235 C2C, the same engine in the little Grumman and the 152. It's only 112 little old tired horses, so you have to get out aerodynamically. it's it's pretty fun. We lately we've been seeing how short of landings we can do. That's like the new thing is like to see spot landings to see how you can make the shortest roll. So far, our record is 500 feet. You can stop that thing in exactly 500 feet. That's crazy.
Yeah, I just following today. I don't know how many feet it was, but I think it was definitely more than 500.
The neat thing is with the Tomahawk, once you get those mains on the ground, if you pull up the flaps, actually, you can pull up the flaps about maybe 5 or 6 inches above the ground. So as soon as you pull the flaps and the flaps come up, it transfers all the weight to the main wheels, sticks them right on the ground, and then if you have so much elevator authority because you have the T-tail that you can do a wheelie. Literally, it will stop. You pull the front of the plane up, and it becomes an aerodynamic brake the front of the plane, like the body of the plane, the fuselage, and it just stops. It's just amazing. It's a neat stuff, but that's those are the fun things that we get to do with flight instructor candidates, not to show off, but just to see if they're how at ease they are and how comfortable they are.
Right, right.
So. Well, so what I would like, I'd love to, I'd love to do is, I'd love to throw next. I don't know if you have chance or time next week at all, but maybe we can turn this into kind of a normal thing a little bit because I'd love to put together like a written document and send it to you of like what I think these lists, they're like a formal list of actual competencies because I didn't have a chance to send that to you, but I would love you to see that and have you comment on that so we can kind of do that together. I'll even send you over my syllabus because I have 13 different tasks to do, all of which are on the video, and I think we accomplished 2 of them today. So I got 10 more. Let's see if we can't knock these suckers out. I really appreciate it, Dave.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. Yeah, I can definitely, sweet. And I didn't get a chance to that master CFI. He didn't send me those questions back, but if there's still time to submit those, I'll have them.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like an ongoing study. I think I'm going to work on this in a larger capacity once I pass the master's part of it and work into this because there's really not a lot of workforce education or business aviation stuff going out there. Like you either have Embry-Riddle or North Dakota, and then that's like, and then University of Ohio University. Your old friend and my old friend uh, BJ, he's working on that stuff there. But that's like it. There's not a whole lot in that field, so it's a good space. And my advisor told me, "Hey, develop that space because you can get a lot of room in it." So I said, "Okay, I can do that. I like to fly and I like to talk about flying. So let's see if we can't turn this into a science."
Good, good, very interesting. Yeah, just send me an email or text, and we'll set up a call for next week.
Awesome, dude. I really appreciate it.
All right, have a good week.
All right, you too. I'll talk to you later, Dave. Thank you.
Right.
All right, see you.